to part 2 of the 4-part docuseries, where we journey through the history of the West Toronto Church of God with special focus on the Easter Convention, now in its 50th year of existence. My name is Lola Salmon, and I'm delighted to be your host for this series. The year 1968 was marked by a season of great change in the city of Toronto, including a new young Prime Minister and the first live telecast from outer space.
We're now approaching lunar sunrise, and for all the people back on Earth, the crew of Apollo 8 has a message that we would like to send to you. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light.
It was against this backdrop of monumental change that the Halton Street Church of God, now the West Toronto Church of God, was born.
Our Heavenly Father, we come in the name of Jesus. I'd like to praise you right now for the blessing which we are about to receive. Oh, hallelujah. I feel you so real.
Its first members, a total of 8 believers, were also seeking for change. They had increasingly become unsettled with the worship experience available to them at that time and needed a place of worship where they could meet God freely and authentically. Powered by the Holy Spirit, these 8 men and women of God formed a worship group under the leadership of the founding pastor and wife, Pastor Clifford MacDonald and Sister Ina MacDonald.
Me, Sister Martin, and Sister Asak, which is Sister Bury, we all were going down at Darcy Street, that down there, to a church with Pastor Jones. And we all have to go and dip in the water before we could testify. And Brother Murray, they would not let us stand up and testify. When you got time to testify, tell you, no, sit down because you're not saved. You have to go baptize, not Jesus. So we just take it as, what would I call it, as joke and let them baptize you, let them dip into the water. You know? Well, we do it. Until when Pastor Mark came and then we start our church. Now, when we started at 95 Danforth Avenue, it was only 8 of us. 8 of us that very first Sunday morning starting that place. Your mother was one, Sister Martin was one, Sister Bury was one, and Sister Somerville and Brother Murray. 8 of us start that church that Sunday morning, and Sister Fraser start that church that Sunday morning until we go on, until look where the church is today.
The membership grew exponentially from the 8 founding members, and so did the Easter Convention. During those early years, all roads led to the Halton Street Easter Convention. There was a sense of excitement, great fellowship, and most of all, a strong sense of unity and an overwhelming sense of the Holy Spirit.
There is so many history with West Toronto Church of God. With the annual Easter Convention, everyone lead to 29 Halton Street. It was like a celebration. And I remember strongly, we used to have various speakers. I remember the time with Bishop Beeson, when he came and he preached about trimming your shade. And that was powerful. But I also remember the young people. And the young people got a hold on me because when they sing, you know, they shake the place.
For God so loved this world that he gave his only son. His son so loved this world that he gave his only life. Now I don't because he did it, we have eternal life. Christ did it all. Oh, Christ did it all. He died for you, yes, and me. He healed the sick and raised the dead.
At convention time, the district it always have the main church like Halton Street. It always have the district churches then involved, and we all always come together, and we always have a wonderful time. From Friday, it always be fasting, and then most of the people doesn't go home Friday evening. After the day service, they have the night service. Saturday morning, start the convention right down to Saturday evening. So once you leave home, you don't have to go home to prepare any meal or anything like that. They prepare the meal at the church, and you always have a good time.
I'm so happy because my brethren, I love my brethren. We are like one family. We are one big family. My sisters and my brothers, they are so good to me and so loving and so kind to me. In my sickness, they have rallied around me because of, I have been sick for some time. I've been sick, and my brethren, they came like my own blood family. And so I love them, and I know that they love me. This church is a loving church. I can tell anyone this church is a blessed and a loving church, and I love it.
In the years that followed, the church and the Easter conventions continued to grow exponentially, both physically and spiritually. Speakers came from locally and internationally to be part of this great move of God. Many souls were saved, both young and old. Prophecies of marriages were heard, births, professional and spiritual growth, healing, and everything related to that came out of the Easter conventions, and the church was gaining strength from glory to glory.
Pastor Mark made sure he give all of you guys your money to go to Kentucky to buy your lunch. And he said, you got to be back in church. And then when he's leaving, he says to Sister Mark, okay, Derry, come on now, Derry, we're going home. And he always called her Derry.
In the midst of this growth and excitement, tragedy struck suddenly. The founding and lead pastor, Reverend Mack, went home to be with the Lord, which dealt a major blow to the church. Their beloved pastor had gone on to glory, but God did not leave them hopeless. The Lord had prepared for them this major change through a prophecy made at the Easter convention earlier that year, and that gave them hope to continue.
There were 4 prophecies that came in with Reverend Kaiser. And the 4 prophecies, he said it would happen in the space of 6 months. Easter convention, and it did happen. And all 4 prophecies came fulfilled. Yes, I do. One was Pastor Mark and Brother Denton, me, and I will not call the other sister's name. She asked me not to discuss her name, but this with her, he said that her marriage was rocky and she and her husband part, and he told her that by now and November they would be back together. And November they were back together. With Pastor MacDonald, he told us that there is going to be a big shaking up, and Pastor Mac died in May. He told Sister Denton's husband that he's going to have a heavy load to carry in the space of 6 months, and he did. He told me that I'm going to have a very vast administration duties to carry out within the church and with ministers. I'm still functioning it today.
Following Pastor Mac's call home to glory, the church was blessed by the leadership of Bishop Peart, a man of God that was known for taking West Toronto Church of God to the next level through enhancing praise and worship, increased professionalism, and raising up ministers, most of whom are serving in different churches today. We were able to sit down with Pastor Peart, who shared his heart about his time as leader of the church and his recollection of the move of God during the Easter conventions. Good afternoon, Pastor Peart. It's so wonderful to have you online this afternoon. It's always great to chat with you. How are you today?
Doing fine, Lola. It's even better to have you. I've not seen you in a long time, and I wondered how you were doing.
Oh, wonderful.
And you are looking good.
Thank you. Thank you. And in fact, I must say this. When we started at West Toronto in 2000, you were so gracious to us, myself and Robert, and we just want to thank you for that. You're one of the reasons why we're still grounded in the faith, and we appreciate you for all that you have done for West Toronto. And it's such a privilege now to have a moment to chat with you, like a fireside chat, to see, how things are with you, and just to kind of go back to some of those earlier years when you started to serve at West Toronto. And 1992 was the first year you started. You want to tell us about that time?
Well, yes. Up until that time, I pastored a very successful church called the Bridgeport Church of God in Connecticut.
Okay.
And it was quite interesting how I got to Toronto, because I had been coming to town. I think I had been coming to town. I visited with Pastor MacDonald downtown. First time was 1973. Bishop MacDonald being my personal friend. By the way, we actually went to Bible school together.
Look at that.
And I was at his wedding.
Okay.
So we were friends.
Right.
And to my surprise, as a matter of fact, I was at the funeral. And to my surprise, maybe the early part of the following year after he passed away, I was in Canada preaching for Bishop Miller. And the overseer called me and said, "Oh, you haven't told me whether or not to put your name on the list." And I was shocked.
Was meant to be.
The way he spoke to me, as if I had shared some desire to be in Canada or to pastor the church. So when I collected myself, I said, "Bishop," I said, "but how could I put my name on the list? I don't live in Canada. Who is going to vote for me?"
Yes.
And he said, "Do you want me to put your name on the list?" I said, "If you want." It was casual.
Yes.
If you want. So there it went. To my surprise, when they had their election meeting for a pastor, I was told that I had 93%
Wow.
of the vote.
Look at that.
So 77% was shared among another three. I don't know how that works, but that's what I was told. 93%, 93% of the vote.
It was meant to be.
It must have
Absolutely.
been meant to be. And so that's how I wound up in Canada and began my ministry there at the West Toronto Church of God in October 1992. I tell you, I love this story, and I think somebody's going to like it. First Sunday morning, when I spoke, I had become the pastor. I asked the congregation not to leave. When we pronounce the benediction, they ought to stay in their seat. I took my wife and holding hands together, we walked to the front of the church. And my wife was on one side of the church and I was on the other. And there we shook the hand of every person that came in.
Mm-hmm.
One young lady, still at church, I tried to hug her.
Mm-hmm.
And there was enough room between me and her for someone to pass. And I was rather surprised because other people were hugging me.
Mm-hmm.
And the following Sunday, I asked the young lady what was the matter. And she said to me, I was born in this church and my pastor never hugged me. So when you tried to hug me, I did not know what to do. So different we were. By the way, do understand that a person being different does not make that person bad. People have personalities, and we have to accept people's personality.
Right.
That being said, what a lovely and gracious man he was.
Yes.
And indeed, Sister Mac, who is still surviving, what a stalwart little woman she has been. And nobody should speak without giving full credit to them.
Right.
For the building and the church that exists at West Toronto today. Pastor Mac, and I can't help calling his name, has left a good spirit, a good setup. Obviously, I built on it.
Sure.
But if there isn't a good foundation, it makes building difficult. Yes, I had to do changes. The first month, I asked the deacon board, I said, I noticed that the young people are not singing on Sunday. And they said to me, no, the young people sing only one Sunday per month. And I said, but where I'm coming from, I have my young people to sing every Sunday. So I began to instruct them that, particularly young people, if you don't involve them and engage them, you won't hold them.
Yes.
Well, we had our fights. But the following month, I said, sir, I'm so sorry, but I am going to have my young people to sing every Sunday. And then the sanctuary choir sing just before the preaching. Lola, it is unbelievable. That church begun to grow at a speed that you can't imagine.
Wow.
So by the time we had gotten into our first Easter convention, which would be 93, we had a stalwart choir. Our youth choir by then was already maybe 40 or 50.
Wow.
Powerful choir. As a matter of fact, one of the jokes we had in the church, if anyone was downstairs, when the young people were singing, you could feel the vibration
Vibration.
of the
I actually,
altar
yeah, they did
from
mention
downstairs, and people were wondering if it's going to break down. They were so powerful.
That's an excellent testimony, because that's really reflecting the fact that they were so engaged. They felt that, church was really meeting their needs, and so they wanted to be there, right?
I insisted that they were allowed to play the music,
Mm-hmm.
sing. On Sunday night, different ones were allowed to sing,
Mm-hmm.
and they brought their friends along to hear them.
Yes.
And their parents came along to hear them.
Yes.
And you know the rest of the
The
story.
rest is history. Yes, of course. You bring them in, and the families come and
bring them
the
in.
rest is history.
By the way, something that people will recall very fondly, there are times when we had 4 baptisms in 1 month.
Mm-hmm.
It was not uncommon for us to have 2, 3, and 4 baptisms in 1 month.
Wow. That is exponential growth there.
Yeah, we were baptizing people all the time.
And it's interesting because when I started in 2000, and when I came, I actually brought my mom too. She was visiting Canada, and I remember saying to her, "Mom, you have to get up early. We have to get to church on time, because you might not find a seat," because it was. And I remember one particular Sunday, and this is now at Wilson Avenue, but I remember one particular Sunday, we had to be sharing seats, like half of my leg was on one seat. Yes, because there were so many folks there, and people wanting to be there and hearing the word and just really enjoying what was happening at church, and it was just growing. And you're right, I did see the young people really engaged. When I came, I saw them singing, and they were singing their hearts out, and people were being filled, and things were really happening when they were ministering.
By the time you came, I think we called ourselves the evangelistic choir. We were adding on a little bit about over 80.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The young people themselves, which, by the way, is larger, my choir, than most churches in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Just the choir, the one choir.
The one choir.
And not to mention the children's choir. I hope somebody has a picture of the children's choir, because sometimes we were looking at 150 children singing in the Easter Convention.
Mm-hmm.
Sister Marvia Vernon would have good recollection on that, because she was a youth pastor.
Yes.
So from Halton Street all the way up to where we are now, we could have had, and this is not a joke, and if you share it with people, we could have had 2 or 3 Easter Convention, because they were so good.
Yes. Yes.
They were so powerful. By the way, talking about finding a seat, at our Easter Convention, that was before the church was reworked, we sometimes had 12, can't say this loud, 12 and 1,300 people in the building.
Mm-hmm.
The little sitting area to the right, back then, before we reworked the church,
right,
it would be filled with people.
Mm-hmm.
The lobby is full with people who are not able to come into the church. And you know what we did. We stretch out, we close the chairs in, we put 2 rows.
Rows in the middle. I remember
in
that.
the aisle. And by the time we did that, we were exceeding our capacity by more than twice. But we did. We did. It was fun. It was beautiful. It was awesome.
Yes. Awesome. And, as you spoke about that, there were so many great things happening. One of the things that really stood out to me were the speakers. There were so many dynamic, wonderful, powerful speakers that came through those conventions. You yourself, I remember you had a sermon that talked about where are the nine. I never forget that. Never forget that.
Oh my.
Yeah, that was many, many, many years ago. And that one stood out to me so vividly. Even today, I mean, a month ago, I was chatting with Robert and I said, remember that where are the nine? And he remembers it too. So some really powerful messages came through the convention.
Some people thought my idea of removing the church was to erase the memory of my predecessor, Bishop MacDonald. Never crossed my mind once. The truth of the matter is, we had no car park. Our church was growing rapidly, and the physical building had become rather difficult to deal with because it was aged. So we knew that we had to find a place, and it was very, very difficult to find a place and to make the move, but we did. But because of the facility, the parking facility, the access to the church, bus stop right before the church, we left only one member behind. She lived down in the city. I remember this woman very distinctly. She was a social worker. Every single soul that we had at Halton Street came to Wilson Avenue with us. But when we got there, and when the people saw the space and the access, there was jubilation. And the growth was exponent. I mean, the church is growing, not by the month, by the week. Sister Beulah Wright, that woman has made an extraordinary contribution to the music ministry of that church. As a matter of fact, I'm hoping, if at all I can, to be at this meeting in real life.
Bless God.
Because I had written a book which was dedicated to Brother and Sister Wright. They don't know. Maybe now there comes that. And never had a chance to dedicate this book to them.
Oh, wonderful.
And if the Lord allows, I want to be there. That woman and her husband, John Wright. Sometimes we tend to forget those who were at the heart of things. People like Mother Lorman, a wonderful lady, and many others. But these people, they need to get a bunch of flowers while they can yet smell it. The others that are younger, they can wait. Please let them know that I love them and I remember their work. And I ask the church to make sure that they remember their contribution to the development of the church known as West Toronto Church of God.
I'm sure you would agree that this was indeed a wonderful trip down memory lane, and the journey certainly does not stop here. In fact, I invite you to come back again as we journey some more next time. You don't want to miss parts 3 and 4, which will be airing shortly, and if you have missed part 1, you are encouraged to check out our social media platforms, our website, westtoronto.org, as well as our Facebook and YouTube pages. Thank you again for joining us, and on behalf of the West Toronto Media Department and the Easter Convention Committee, I say good night to you and see you next time.